So I want to welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Elena Rios. I'm President and CEO of the National Hispanic Medical Association, and we are one of many partners who are on our Zoom today for the All of Us research program, and this is our Fireside chat series. We are focused on older adults, and we do have our website there at the bottom, nhmamd.org. You can find this recording early next week. And let's go to the next slide. The All of Us research program can continue. Oh, let me just say, we're going to have a discussion, and anybody that in the audience who has a question for our panelists, please put that question in the chat box. I will moderate and ask our members of our panel to answer questions. Unfortunately, I just see that we were not able to offer CME for this program. That's okay. So anyway, we look forward to a great discussion with our partners who are all involved with the elderly in their own ways, and we'll let them talk more about what they do. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to just talk about the importance of the All of Us research program. Here's the director of NIH, Dr. Collins. And the All of Us program is a historic longitudinal effort to gather data from 1 million or more people who live in the United States. They have to be over 18 years old, and to create a diverse health database that represents us all. And by taking into account individual differences in life circumstances, socioeconomics, environment, and biology, researchers may uncover paths toward delivering precision medicine or individualized prevention, treatment, and care for all of us. Next slide. So this is our mission of the All of Us research program, is to accelerate health research and medical breakthroughs, enabling individualized prevention, treatment, and care for all of us. They do this by nurturing relationships with 1 million or more participant partners. Those are the people who sign up and actually get engaged in this program. The All of Us also delivers the largest, richest biomedical data set ever, because with 1 million people, you have a lot of data on different types of diseases or conditions that people have, like diabetes or heart disease. And it catalyzes a robust ecosystem of researchers who will have an accelerated research career because they won't have to advertise for research participants. They will be able to go to this database that will have an open access system for the next generation of researchers. Next slide. So we also see a very, very important transformation to diversity. One of the major objectives of the All of Us research program was to create a diverse research pool by looking at demographics, geography, health status, data types, and in this case, looking at different age groups. We're going to talk about the importance of research to the elderly population. Next slide. And what's the value to participate? Well, if you participate as a participant, you will contribute to All of Us, make it possible for your community, whatever community you belong to, if African American, Latino, Asian, Native American, that you would be able to be represented in medical research and help develop treatments and strategies that would be more relevant to your community. There's a chance to learn about your own health, including personalized risk factors. There's a chance to learn about additional research opportunities, and your data could be used in new studies that could be, like I said earlier, could lead to new understanding of new treatments. Next slide. So participants can receive all of these things if you sign up, including, I'll just mention a couple, including your own data, but also the research results of research that would be done on a large group of people, genetic information, and scientific findings that you can feel proud to participate in and to help develop the new knowledge for the next generation. Next slide. And why participate? Well, because we have so many diverse people in our country, especially our racial and ethnic diverse people. African American population, just to give an example, 13% of the United States population, but only 6.7% have participated in the National Institute of Health clinical trials, and only 1.6% in FDA new drug studies. So, and same with Hispanics and Asians. And I think what's important is that's why the All of Us decided we need to get everybody to participate. And our partners of the All of Us, who are going to be talking in a minute, are all excited about encouraging all of their networks and their constituents, their friends, to get other friends to participate, so that we can have more information about all of Americans. Next slide. So this is to learn more. These are the important websites. The first one here is joinallofus.org or researchallofus.org. And then there's the social media information. And then, of course, if you go to the National Institutes of Health websites, you can find allofus.nih.gov. Okay, next slide. So let's get started on talking about the elderly. Over 362,000 participants have already enrolled in the All of Us research program, and 104,000, over a third, 38.3%, are over the age of 60, which means we have a lot to talk about. Let me just start by having the next slide. I think we have the introductions. Oh, New Orleans. Okay, we were going to focus on New Orleans just as an example of a city with a lot of elderly. And as of July 2019, there's almost 400,000 residents in the city. You can see it's very much African American, with almost 60% of the population being African American. Hispanics only 5%. And white 34%. But it's important to know that we need to focus on different cities as we go through our fireside chats. 50 Forward is the leading resource for adults 50 plus in Middle Tennessee who seek to live longer, more fulfilling lives. And we are 50 Forward is the premier provider of innovative programs and services for older adults and their families, through a powerful leadership team of staff, volunteers, and community partners, and they are with us tonight. And the National Hispanic Council on Aging is the leading national organization working to improve the lives of Hispanic older adults, their families, and their caregivers. Headquartered in Washington, D.C., NHCOA has been a strong voice dedicated to promoting, educating, and advocating for research and policy and practice in economic security, health, and housing for more than 50 years. And in 2014, there were 3.6 million older adult Hispanics, I'm assuming over 60 or 65, constituting 8% of the older population in the United States. And this number is expected to grow to 21.5 million. That's, wow, that's 7 times what we have now by 2060. And in light of this rapid growth, NHMA also empowers Hispanic older adults and families through leadership development to enable them to age with dignity and become their own best advocates. Next slide. So let me Let me introduce everybody that's here. I don't think did Dr. Suwani join us? Okay, he's not on. Unfortunately, he may have been caught up with all of the COVID-19 patients in his intensive care practice, and he is from New Orleans. Maybe we'll hear from him a little while later. We have Gretchen Funk, Chief Program Officer from 50 Forward. Gretchen, you want to wave?
Hi there.
Hi. Vera Coleman, Peer Ambassador from 50 Forward. Hi.
Hello.
Christina Pacheco, Director, Resource Development and Policy, National Hispanic Council on Aging, and Christine Perez Jimenez, Program and Resource Development Associate from the National Hispanic Council on Aging.
Hi, good night.
Okay, great. Okay, next slide. Is that all the slides? Oh, well, and we'll show that slide afterwards. Let me start with the 50 Forward. Why don't you tell us what are some of your organizational lessons learned in terms of research? I'm going to go to some questions in a minute, but just to introduce what you do and what do you think you've learned? Let's stay positive here.
Sure. So again, I'm Gretchen Funk with 50 Forward. We are based in Middle Tennessee, and we are a social service agency. So research is not our primary focus. Engagement of older adults in a variety of active aging centers, lifelong learning centers, and supportive care programs is our focus. So we have been a national community engagement partner with All of Us since 2017. And our aim is to engage older adults. We absolutely recognize what you were saying, Dr. Rios, about the fact that older adults need to be at the table and need to be represented amongst the diversity of this country in order for the All of Us program to be truly representative and to help everyone who is affected by healthcare needs, and that's everybody in the entire world. So we are very happy to be at the table to represent older adults.
Great. Vera, did you want to add to that about 50 Forward?
No more than to say I'm delighted to be here, and I hope that what I have to contribute will be added value.
Okay. And how about for the National Hispanic Council of Aging?
Yes, good evening. One of our programmatic priorities since our inception has been health. And while NHMA has conducted its own research and studies, it was not really until we partnered with the All of Us research program that we really began encouraging Latinos and Latino older adults to actively engage in health research as a general principle. And so we have learned that through consistent messaging and pre-established trust and relationships, we've been able to be really effective in this area with the populations that we serve. We've learned a lot when it comes to the need to establish trust and have consistent messaging. We've also learned how to be very innovative about overcoming a lot of the barriers that we've experienced as
well. Christine, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I do echo of my colleague, Christina Pacheco. We have been, well, the organization have been in existence for more than 50 years. And our aim is to improve the lives of Hispanic older adults, and not only for them, but also for their families and caregivers. So joining the program, All of Us research program, can help us contribute to that mission of us to improve the health and the lives of the community we serve, that it's the Hispanic population.
So I'm going to ask a few of the questions, and I think, let me have all of you chime in. Why do you think it's important, and how do you talk to your networks? I know you don't necessarily get involved in research, but you have your own trusted networks. So you have an opportunity, to change behavior like nobody else can. So in your own backyard, in your own summits or your own conferences, your own meetings, how do you talk to people about the All of Us research program? How do you get them to, how do you engage with them? You said you all engage with them, but what is it that you tell them? What are the messages? Because, you know, we're all here to help the audience learn how to recruit people into their research programs and hopefully into All of Us research programs. So Gretchen, you want to start?
Sure. So at 50 Forward, we really embrace the All of Us tenet that participants are partners in the program. So the value is not just in enrolling people in the program, but having the participants help to design and develop the program and then help us to learn from them as folks who are associated with the program. So we have used a peer ambassador model, and I'm going to ask Vera to speak to her experience a little bit, because we understand that peer relationships are really the most important things. You know, older adults bring a wealth of experience. They bring many reasons for wanting to, for instance, leave a legacy for future generations. So they have, you know, interest in their own health, as we all do. But in this life stage, there's also that desire to share what you have learned and share your messages with others to benefit them. So we really resonate with that idea that we are all partners in this program and that older adults have very much to offer. And it's through people like Vera, who's one of our fantastic peer ambassador volunteers. She's one of 20. So we have 20 peer ambassadors that have worked with us really since the beginning of the program. And they work in their spheres of influence to really listen and be able to address individual concerns about the program. So Vera, would you want to share some of the ways that the tactics you use and how you engage people in All of Us?
Yes, I would like to. My background is in biomedical research. I've had about 30 years of it, but I don't start there. I start by listening. I don't approach it as that I'm selling anything or I'm presenting anything, but I'm sharing. And I think if I can come from that perspective, I have learned that people don't really care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And I believe that All of Us research program is very, very intentional in the efforts to have senior adults, older adults as participants. And so I view it as an empowering opportunity. I say to them, this is ownership. I refer to us as partners. That's who we are. We are partners because we need their expertise, but conversely, they need our data. And we have a lot of important data to offer. And I share my story. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about what I do. And I form relationships with people that I'm talking to and share my story, as I said.
Right.
And they can see that
you care.
I care, and I'm vetted in the program, fully vetted.
So listening and showing that you care. How about Nakoa? What have you learned, and how do you engage your adults, the older adults in your program? What's your secret?
So I am going to let Christine elaborate on this one, but I will just start by sharing one of our tenets in our work is really advocacy and empowerment of older adults. And so we do definitely have the discussion about, you know, the need to be at the table, the need to be represented. We have had to not only ourselves learn a lot about precision medicine, but also learn how to teach those concepts to the communities that we're working with. And, you know, it's hard to create programs and medicines and treatments and devices that work for everyone if everyone is not at the table. And so we have those conversations with the individuals that we engage with, and we come at it as a sense of, this is a form of leadership and advocacy. And what you're doing not only impacts yourself, but future generations. And I think also having that generational discussion with folks really resonates in Latino communities. And then Christine does a lot of groundwork for our organization and does a lot of the interaction with folks. And so I'll let her kind of elaborate on that.
Thank you, Christina. But it's true, and also we are a trusted organization. So that's the first priority, to be trusted entities in the community, and particularly with the Hispanic older adults. And as Christina mentioned, with the messaging about precision medicine and bringing examples that can be understandable for them, and also in a language that it's appropriate as well. So we do this in cultural events that we participate in local and national area, right? And also in health fairs, regional conferences. We do annually several regional conferences, like in Maryland, LA, California, also in Miami, Florida, and even in Latin America, in El Salvador. And also we do a lot of community trainings, and this is the most important, is that we deploy community health workers or promotoras de salud that can carry out that message about precision medicine and about the All of Us research program to their communities, because they know the community, their needs, what's happening there. So the information, they are sharing it with the community that we want to target, that is the Hispanic older adults and Hispanics overall.
Okay, so you told me, so both organizations have told me about a program that you have that helps you build your networks, I'll just say, for All of Us research program. Could you tell me what are the barriers for older adults that you have come across, so that the audience can understand what are barriers to think about when you plan a program like your program? So let me say that the 50 Forward has an ambassador program. What are the barriers for the participants in your program? And then for the NHMA, I'll just use your health fairs or your regional activities. You mentioned those two. To think about barriers that you learned, lessons learned, and let me just ask for you to say, what did you do to decrease the barriers for others?
I could start for 50 Forward. When you think about the All of Us research program, it is a digital platform, and I think everyone immediately thinks about issues of the digital divide with an older generation who did not grow up with a smartphone in their hand or a tablet or a computer. And the program really relies quite heavily on that digital engagement. So what we have done is really talk with All of Us, because we are there to provide feedback to them about the value of high touch interactions. So high touch for us involves people like Vera listening. As Vera was saying, spending time with someone, because there are issues like mistrust. There are things that have happened in research with underrepresented communities that understandably, especially for older adults who have a lived memory of some of these problems, would give them pause about participating. So the idea that someone will just go to an app and sign up without having had the opportunity to ask questions and be listened to, that's something we have tried to work to overcome and to dispel. Vera, I don't know if you would want to talk about the digital divide and how you have managed that yourself, because of course in COVID, we have all been, forced into this arena even more than in the past.
Yes, and yes, I will talk about the digital divide, because I have certainly not bridged it completely, but I'm learning, I'm getting more comfortable with it. And I think in addition to that too, we have to recognize that older adults, as you said, especially in the African American community, they realize some of the barriers as it relates to past history. And I have to acknowledge that. I don't fail to acknowledge that. And I think that with acknowledging that and to say to them, yes, but this is one barrier we're going to overcome, because shame on whomever was the reason that we weren't at the table. I feel now that we have the opportunity, and shame on me if I don't show up at the table, because I feel we're definitely on the menu. And so we need to be there. We have help with the ambassadors can help persons enroll, and there is apprehension, but then I think we overcome it just by helping each other and showing trust. This other barrier, what about my information? Can I trust this? You know, and to just share with them how it's encrypted and your name is not there and the researchers don't know it's your data.
Oh, yeah, that's great. The privacy and that All of Us research program has. So
Yes.
let me just stop for a minute and introduce Dr. Leo I'm going to say your name wrong. Seoni? Seoni. Sorry. So we are just talking about the two programs that have been highlighted here by our partners. 50 Forward has a program called the Ambassador Program, and NHMA, the National Hispanic Council on Aging, has health fairs and they have regional summits. And they explain their programs to be able to encourage participants to consider hearing about All of Us. And I asked about their messaging to get participants to consider signing up. And right now I was just asking what were the barriers that they have had to deal with older people in these programs, and to talk about how they've planned around those barriers. So we just heard from the 50 Forward. So let's hear from the NHMA, and then Leo, I'll ask you a couple of questions about the research itself.
Yes, well,
Dina?
for us,
Yeah.
yeah, some of the barriers, well, the term of health research and precision medicine for sure is a new topic for the older adults, as it can be shown in statistics that Hispanic and Latinos are underrepresented in health research and clinical trials. And this can be due to no and even limited exposure to health research itself by not understanding the importance of it. And we have overcome it by providing examples about precision medicine, as Christina just mentioned. And also what we have encountered during our health fairs, community trainings, regional conferences, and cultural events overall is that Hispanics may place a greater priority on the faith rather than scientific data. And they may want to include as well their family as part of their medical decisions. Also, we have encountered another barrier that is the competing priorities. For example, sometimes engaging in research is very time consuming, and others may have limited resources. For instance, an example is the lack of transportation, also the child care where they cannot join the program due to, leaving kids, etc. And also time off work, because some of the work they don't allow them to join.
Have you been able to plan around to minimize barriers? Have you been able to do things more effectively?
We have, and those are some of the kind of broader barriers that we see with regards to our communities participating in health research as a whole. And we have done brainstorming. So what we work through as a national organization, our Aging Action Network, which is a series of community health or community-based organizations and aging organizations across the country. And so one of the larger barriers that we also have is not only are we educating community members, but we're also educating these gatekeepers who are these community-based organizations on health research, which may not be, you know, one of the focuses that they're working towards in their communities. But also, so trying to get them on board with, you know, understanding the importance of a program like All of Us. But they're also, you know, those service organizations that are providing the resources that can help overcome some of these barriers to participate in research. So maybe these are the organizations that can assist with transportation and childcare. And so finding those connections and making those connectors between community gatekeepers and, you know, researchers, and engaging communities in research has been one of the ways that we have been really successful at overcoming some of these barriers. And Christine is one of the folks who's on the front lines of doing a lot of that education, not just for our community members, but these community-based organizations that we also work with across the country to really make those connections for us and for community members.
So that's great. So both groups, 50 Forward and NHMA, have recognized barriers, but have been able to change or adjust, I'll just say adjust your programs to be able to help more people get engaged in your programs. And in this case, in the All of Us research program. So Leo, why don't you tell us, why is it important to get older adults? And in this case, we're talking about 60-year-olds and over, right? Is that?
Yes.
We're not that old, but older adults,
experienced adults,
as a group in general, why is it so important for them to participate in medical research?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Rios. Well, I think COVID and the vaccine, the exciting vaccine, is a great example of why it's important to have more older individuals in these studies. You know, we know that older individuals are just different. We know their immune system tends to wane a little bit over time. And when we're doing a lot of these trials, we know the pharmacodynamics of a drug is very different in the elderly versus those that are younger. And so understanding the effects of a drug on a population, a geriatric or older population, understanding the effects of a vaccine are very, very important, because the dosing may be different. And again, what may be efficacious in someone who's in their 40s may not be efficacious in someone who's in their 70s. And so we won't know that unless we get the right representation in the trials. And so the COVID vaccine trials were a nice example of that. And credit Moderna and Pfizer, because they did do a nice job of making sure they had representative groups in their trials. And then one of the ways we recruited that is that we went into communities and made sure that we talked to not just diverse groups with regards to race and ethnicity, but we also talked to diverse groups with regards to age, and really trying to, on many of the things that were already mentioned, that working with our community leaders, working with community workers, making it so that it's a trusted individual that's having that conversation about why it's important to participate in research. I see Vera nodding, so.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I guess everybody heard the good news that FDA did approve, the committee that FDA had today approved the first vaccine of many, hopefully. The first vaccine came out of Pfizer and another company, BioNTech, I think it's named, that is from Germany. And so we will see, I guess there's another approval process. That's the recommendation to FDA, that I guess the FDA agency and HHS probably have to formally approve before they can start the distribution planning that has been planned with states and health departments in our I guess in the districts of the country. So that's great news today. Today's a historic day for research. And as Leo said, for the importance of why we need to have all people involved in research, including the older adults. So let me ask Leo another question here about the All of Us research program. What do you think All of Us needs to do to include more older adults? We've heard about messages in our community organizations here, but as a research institution, what do you think some of those important key messages should be, in addition to the COVID-19?
Rios, I think there's one is for the All of Us program, because it's a longitudinal research project. It requires people to register, but then there's checkpoints along the way where you have to, get your checkups and be followed by all of us. And I think that is a challenge. So one challenge is to get people registered. The other challenge is to keep people in the study, since it's a longitudinal study, and say, well, this is a lot of my time and effort. And so I think we need to think about our touch points, and instead of creating different touch points, using touch points that the population may already have, like their routine doctor visit as to, hey, we're not going to do an extra visit or extra lab work, or we'll just do that when you see your doctor, if we could partner with that. Or in a community, can it be if we do the health fairs in that community, can we partner with the local community clinics so that, hey, we have a health fair, we'll do all of us check too, so it's not an extra burden on that patient on this longitudinal. And then I think the rest of the group did a nice job talking about how to get people in. But I think keeping people in the study is just as important.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. One of the questions that came up, and I think somebody started to answer it, was given the kind of the political space that we are in this year, and especially with the concept of fake news, or not knowing what's going on with information, and you want to have evidence, you want to have science, you want to be able to be transparent. Could anybody on the panel speak to the issue of privacy and data collection and privacy? Have you heard that from your colleagues? Is there any example of how it's important for people to know that that their data and their personal information is going to be kept privately? Vera, did you want to say something?
Well, I can say yes, that is one of the major concerns, particularly with older people. And I have heard that a lot because when we start to tell people, well, the data is collected through surveys and then your family history and then release of your electronic health record, then that's where, no, wait, let's expand. So I have learned that I don't start out sharing about that particular piece of information. I wait to see that I am building a trustful relationship, and that then I speak to the fact that our samples, our bio samples, all of the data information, it's encrypted. Your name is taken away from it. And even the researchers that are working in those particular areas, they don't know where the samples are. They don't know the identity of the person. And
Right.
That is one of the major barriers that people have said to me. What about my information and how safe is it?
And I think in working with older adult populations who unfortunately seem to be targeted a lot more for fraud and scams and things like that, that this is a huge area of concern. And then in working with Latino populations, there's also concerns related to potential immigration status and how much information are we collecting and what are we doing with that and who has access to that information. And so as Vera and Christine and Gretchen have all talked about, it is really those relationships that you develop with folks and the trust that you establish that helps overcome some of that fear. And it is a fine line that we walk, right? Because it takes so much time and so much effort to establish that trust, but really just a minute or a millisecond to break that trust. And so talking about how much the program has invested in their security measures, and it gets very complex, right? When you talk about, well, the data is stored out, on these servers and it's encrypted, and what does that really even mean? And can myself explain that in a way, that, or understand it in a way that I can then explain it to somebody else, where there may also be language barriers, gets to be a little bit complex. And so, again, really relying on the fact that we as organizations trust the National Institutes of Health, trust the All of Us research program, and then can help convey that trust to the people and the communities that we are working with, I think is the right way to do it, in the way that we have been successful at doing it. Because talking about data encryption and things like that, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody really knows what that means. And so, understanding that, we are really risking our reputation in making those connections with folks to this program. I think our constituents get that, because they're not going to go to all of us if something happens with their data. They're going to come back to us, right? And I think we trusted you. And so that's, I think, kind of the line that we go when we look at security issues.
I'd like to ask Christine, maybe just an example of, and let me just say that it is true that anybody in the United States that lives here that's over 18 can sign up to be part of this great research program. You don't have to be a citizen. But Christine, could you tell us about a conversation that you've had with somebody that may have asked about citizenship, or somebody who, may have been at a community health center or one of your health fairs, and it came up, or after you started talking, after people open up to you, because you all seem to be able to get people to listen to you and to talk and be trusted, right? Inevitably, it's going to happen that somebody who is undocumented is going to wonder, if they're going to be deported, if their data is going to be reported to the INS. I mean, what is it that how do you handle that kind of communication?
Yes, it happened once, and it was in a health fair, basically. And that person came to me, and I explained it to him about the program in Spanish and everything. And he told me, okay, but I'm not legal here in the U.S. Can I participate? And I just, well, he actually asked me if he had to share his social security. That's the question that they asked for.
Okay, that's a good hint.
Yes, and I know where it goes. So I told him it doesn't matter. The program does not ask you your social security. You just have to live in the U.S. And he was like, okay, send me the information. And I'm like, okay, you can join here. And I provided him the link that is joinallofus.org/together. And in that way, he was more relaxed. And he left with the information that was the purpose of that meeting, the conversation one-to-one. So yes.
Oh, good. So let me ask, Leo, we've talked about older adults, but in our communities, inevitably, and we talked about legacy, inevitably there's also children involved or families involved. And for those that are over 18, how would you see it as an opportunity to get two people to sign up? Maybe the older person and their caregiver or their friend or their other, their significant other. Leo, do you want to talk about family dynamics and being involved as I'm going to use the word ambassador. I don't mean you're part of the 50 Forward program, but as a as a trusted, in your case, a doctor who talks to your patients about getting involved in a research project, how would you talk to a family situation?
And are very relevant for the Hispanic community, because I can't tell you how many times when I have an older patient in my clinic, they're younger. It could be a cousin, it could be their grand daughter or son, but that is quote unquote interpreter. So you do have the family there many times in clinic. And it does leave an opportunity to say, look, this is important for your grandson or granddaughter, or for your son and daughter, everyone's participation. We will learn more about diseases, the natural history of diseases. We'll learn more about how to keep people healthy. And it is impactful in your generation, but it's going to be even more impactful in your grandchildren and your children's generation. It also is a nice opportunity to talk about social responsibility. And, you know, I think COVID has taught us as Americans, we're not very good at social responsibility. We always we seem to be thinking about ourselves first and not the more common good.
Yeah.
And this is a nice opportunity to have a conversation about why it's important for all of us to be good citizens of the world, but more importantly, just good citizens to each other. And there's a real goodness that comes out of being part of these research trials.
Very good. Gretchen, let me just ask, is there other type of activities that you're doing besides the ambassador program with all of us?
Sure. So our agency has many programs and services that we offer. So we actually, as an agency, turn 65 next year, big milestone in the older adult world. So we offer lots of essential services, abilities to have community. So at this time with the All of Us program, we have had to pivot to that digital engagement, even though that's a challenge with an older adult population. So we have had some partnerships that have been very timely. Vanderbilt University Medical Center is in Nashville, and that's where we're located. And they are the data research center for All of Us. And they also hosted, the medical center hosted one of the COVID vaccine trials through Moderna. And we were able to partner with them to offer some, All of Us, we call them online cafes, where we engaged. It was actually the HIV vaccine trial unit at Vanderbilt converted to a COVID vaccine trial unit. And so we had cafes where we were able to talk about medical mistrust and how do we dispel that, the importance of diversity and research with folks who were really engaged in something very timely, something that folks wanted to hear about. And I think to Dr. Sawani's point, we recognize that enrolling is the first hurdle and continued engagement is a longer process. You know, this is a longitudinal study. So a lot of what we do in our program is look for other ways to engage and send a message. So medical data, you know, it resonates with some people, but looking at diversity in other ways can also resonate and keep people connected to the program. So Kelsey Mahaffey, who's the director of the program, who Vera knows very well, she had this vision of using a global art show. So we had a show that we offered with an art historian walking folks through global art as a way to appreciate diversity differently, but that could draw people in a different way. So we have to, you know, come back and do all those, you know, the little modules, and we have to continue to stay engaged. So we're trying to reach people in different ways, touch them in different ways. So that's some of the innovative things.
So you mentioned something that one of the questions, and if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer. Just please type your questions in our chat. One of the questions just came up. Once you sign up, what do you have to do after that? And I don't know if it's Gretchen or Christina, Leo, you know, could you just tell everyone how many times you have to be seen over how much period of time? And, you know, what is the protocol for the All of Us participant? in this research program?
So I could try to tackle that, and then other folks
Okay.
could chime
But just
in.
in general, you know, not every detail,
Sure.
but it's important, I think, for people to know they do have to come back.
Yep. So it is a digital program, so app-based. So you go to the app, and it depends how you're signing up, through a health provider organization or as a direct volunteer. But you sign up at joinallofus.org, and you create your account. And then there are different modules that you can complete. So modules around your family history, your personal health history. And then also you have the opportunity, if you live in areas of the country where this is available, to offer your physical measurements and biospecimens. So that is a visit. Now there are saliva kits that go out to some parts of the country if you don't have a health provider organization near you that can do that. But that's really the one visit that happens. And then afterwards, it's a continued engagement with the program. You can link your Fitbit, your fitness tracker. You know, that's another kind of data that the program is really interested in, you know, around activity levels and social determinants of health. So there are various markers throughout the program, and those are going to continue on and develop throughout the 10 years that the program is envisioned. But you get prompts sort of through the app. I don't know if other folks want to join in about other things that the program asks of participants.
So let me ask you, do you have to stay for the 10 years? Do you have, when you sign up, do you have to say, I mean, nobody knows how long you're going to live. For the older adult, what's your goal? I mean, you want to stay engaged. You come back every so often. What do you know?
It's funny that you say that, because Christine has actually had folks mention that, you know, this is a long commitment that I may not be able to fulfill because of natural the course of life. And like all research, it's voluntary. So if at some point you decide that you no longer want to engage, you are free to disenroll from the program at that point.
Leo, do you know any of the specifics on how many times you have to go back?
Yeah, Dr. Rios.
Yeah, I really don't. But anyway, you have to go back. You know why? Because you change through the years, you gain weight, you lose weight, I developed asthma, you know, I don't know, 5 years ago. I'd never had asthma when I was a little kid. I think it's the Washington, D.C. environment and all the trees here, you know, and the change in all the leaves drop. And you know, I'm from California, and that never happened over there. So, you know, there's different, and people move to different climates, different environments. And I think there is a difference in your condition. You may have diabetes, for example. I know my dad had diabetes when he turned 60, and he lived to be 90. But you know, some people don't live with 30 years of a chronic disease, because they may get kidney disease or heart disease and have bad complications. So through time, you never know how you're not stable in terms of your own health. So it's important to go back and have more data to show how you're progressing and getting better or getting worse, or, you know.
Dr. Rios, I saw pop up on the chat, someone asked about the electronic health record, and I forgot to mention that.
Oh, okay.
And you're given the opportunity to link your electronic health record to the program. So that really reduces the burden around the need to go physically back anywhere to provide information. And if you continue with that permission for the electronic health record to be linked, then it does allow people to track over time, you know, to take a look, like you're saying, at the development of other conditions and what might have affected those. So the burden on the participant, I think the program has really tried to reduce that as much as possible and create some of these other linkages which allow them to get the information. And as others said, you know, even if you participate for a year, the hope is you participate over the long term. The information that you've shared is still going to be valuable in this repository, right?
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I Yeah, I don't see any other chats. I think we're going to wrap up, but there is another question that we had for Leo, and that was about medical students and residents. You're in an academic teaching hospital, the Oshner system, and I know you teach a lot of trainees at different levels. And how do you talk to them about the importance of research so that they might even think of going into research careers? You know, we need more people like ourselves to be able to be trusted with all of us. And that would be one way to do it, is to have more diversity within researchers.
Good question, Dr. Rios. I mean, I think it touches on a lot of topics. One is that I'll start with the last statement first, and that is, if we're going to earn trust in our communities, we know, and there's a growing evidence of data that says, when the physicians look like and represent the communities they serve, there's better care. And if we're going to try to get African Americans and Hispanics to participate in research trials, when their physician scientist or clinician scientist looks like them and shares a common cultural background, it's a lot easier to have that conversation and to get that trust. And we absolutely need more Hispanic and African American clinician scientists and scientists. There's a shortage of physicians that represent our communities, and there's an even greater shortage of physician scientists that represent our communities. So I think it is very important. You know, as a young Hispanic medical student and physician, first one to graduate college in my family, you're looking for those role models. And, you know, if someone just said, hey, Leo, you're really good at this, you could be an academic doctor. And I think that set me on my path. But I think that role modeling and that positive encouragement, because a lot of times we have the imposter syndrome in being a young Hispanic physician back then. Having someone just give me that reassurance that, no, you could do it and you're good at it and you should do it, really made all the difference. So I think we need mentorship and coaching. And then the last point I'll make, Dr. Rios, is that you know, I think it's going to be a little easier with COVID. And the reason I say that is today really is a monumental historical day. It's an incredible day for science. And you know, mRNA vaccines stand on the shoulders of Watson and Crick discovering DNA in the 1950s.
Yes.
And this is, you know, and I'm so glad you asked that question, because you've now inspired me to go back to my medical students and residents and say, we need more you to become scientists to solve the next generation's problems, because we really need that type of energy, and without diversity, we're just not going to be successful.
Yeah, especially with our country and the world actually heading to having more people of color than white people, and the importance of the multiracial groups, and with globalization, people traveling and getting to know other cultures, and how important it is to be more aware of and respectful of other people. But I know we're gonna wrap up. It's top of the hour here. Any last words on something that you'd like to say about the importance of being in what you're doing for all of us and for the research enterprise?
Well, I can just say that our motto for the All of Us Research Program at 50 Forward is the future of health begins with you. Now that shows ownership, that's empowering, and it invites one to be partnered and involved.
Okay. Gretchen?
I agree with Vera. She says it the best, as our peer ambassadors do. So yes, I think this has been such a great opportunity, and thank you, Dr. Rios and the National Hispanic Medical Association. We really appreciate the invitation to speak with you all.
Sure. Christina?
Yeah, I think, this is a very active program that is providing a seat at the table for everyone. And so it is really our responsibility to take that opportunity to join the table. And we definitely communicate that to the folks that we are enrolling. And again, as Gretchen and Vera said, thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of this effort.
Christine?
Yes, I do echo of Christina, Vera, and Gretchen. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here today and talk about our work and with Hispanic older adults and older adults in general enjoying this program. And I encourage everyone to join all of us and be part of the future of health. So for more information, you can access to joinallofus.org/together. And in Spanish will be joinallofus.org juntos. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay. And Leo, any parting words here?
Vera said it best. It's hard to top Vera. Nuclear medicine begins with you.
Oh, so I've just been reminded here to invite all the listeners to our annual conference. The 2021 National Hispanic Medical Association will have a virtual annual conference in March 17 is the opening reception, and we will have events from around midday, I'm going to say 11 o'clock in the morning until evening, so that we can accommodate our West Coast colleagues. And the website, which isn't here, is NHMAMD.org. We have our agenda and our sponsorship exhibit posters for students. Any student would like to present a poster, we invite you to go to our website, NHMAMD.org. And we're very happy to say that we're hoping to have Dr. Fauci get an award this year from the government awardee. And we have 2 physicians of the year who both died a year ago. I mean, this is, but it's, they were one of our founders, Dr. Ciro Sumaya in Texas, and Dr. Richard Sapanta from Los Angeles. And he was our advisor. Dr. Ciro Sumaya actually gave us the first $1 million to start the organization when he was the head of HRSA at HHS. So we're going to honor them. And we just look forward to exchanging more information like we exchanged tonight. We look for partners to come to our organizational events and share ideas about how to help our communities, especially the Latino and other underserved communities. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us and thank the great speakers. Thank you all for what you do. And everybody have a happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
New Year.
To you.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
See ya.